At my sister's wedding, she smirked and introduced me to her boss. This is the embarrassment of our family. My parents laughed. Her boss stayed silent, watching them. The room went tense. Then he smiled and said, "Interesting, because you're fired." Vanessa's fingernails dug into my forearm as she dragged me across the marble floor of the Grand Meridian Hotel ballroom. Her wedding dress cost $18,000. I knew because I'd negotiated the final price down from 22. Her smile was too wide, too sharp, the kind of expression that meant someone was about to bleed. "Mr. Harrington," she called out, her voice cutting through the jazz quartet and champagne-fueled chatter. "I absolutely need you to meet someone very special." The conversations around us stuttered to a stop. Heads turned. My stomach dropped. Richard Harrington was 53, vice president of operations at Caldwell Financial Group, wearing a charcoal Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He'd flown in from Boston specifically for Vanessa's wedding. She'd been his executive assistant for 2 years, and she never shut up about how important he was, how prestigious her position was. "This is my brother Elliot," Vanessa announced, her voice dripping with performance. "The embarrassment of our family." The words landed like a physical blow. Heat crawled up my neck. She laughed. High, cruel practice. Still single at 38? Still working some tiny consulting business nobody understands? We keep hoping he'll amount to something eventually, but she shrugged, the gesture devastating in its casualness. Some people just never figure their lives out. My father chuckled from his seat at the head table. We stopped expecting much from Elliot about a decade ago. My mother covered her mouth, giggling like Vanessa had told the funniest joke she'd ever heard. "At least we have one successful child." I stood frozen. My hands trembled at my sides. 38 years of being invisible, of being the quiet one who handled everything while Vanessa took credit. And now this public humiliation at her wedding. The wedding I'd practically planned. But Mr. Harrington didn't laugh. He sat perfectly still, a champagne flute halfway to his lips. His eyes moved from Vanessa to my parents, then settled on me. His expression was unreadable, carved from granite. "Elliot," he said quietly. The silence was absolute. "What kind of consulting do you do?" I blinked, surprised he was addressing me at all. "Financial consulting, corporate restructuring. I help small to mid-sized businesses avoid bankruptcy when they're in crisis." "How long have you been doing this?" 14 years. He nodded slowly, set down his champagne without drinking. "Fascinating." He turned to Vanessa. All warmth drained from his face like water through broken glass. "Vanessa, I need to see you in my office first thing Monday morning. 8 a.m. sharp. Don't be late." He stood, adjusted his cufflinks, and walked toward the exit without another word. The silence was suffocating. Vanessa's smile flickered, confusion crossing her face. My parents exchanged glances. Dad's forehead creased, Mom's mouth hanging slightly open. Nobody understood what had just happened. Neither did I. I excused myself 20 minutes later, claiming a headache, and drove home to my small house on the outskirts of Riverside, my hands still shaking on the steering wheel. I'd been the invisible son for as long as I could remember. The quiet one, the one who didn't need attention, didn't demand praise, just handled things while everyone else took the spotlight. Vanessa was younger by 4 years, but she'd always been the star. Drama club lead, homecoming queen, full scholarship to Boston University. My parents had her picture in every room. Vanessa at graduation, Vanessa at her first day at Caldwell Financial, Vanessa receiving an award from the Chamber of Commerce, my own college degree, earned while working 3 jobs, got a congratulations card that my mother forgot to sign. 3 months before the wedding, Vanessa had called asking for small favors. "Elliot, I need you to handle a few vendor issues. You're good at boring logistics stuff." The few vendor issues turned into me negotiating with 12 different vendors, comparing quotes, catching a catering company, trying to charge for services they hadn't provided. I caught the florist attempting to upcharge by $900. I renegotiated the venue contract, saving her $4,200 on the deposit. When she forgot her checkbook 2 weeks before the wedding, I advanced $3,000 to secure the photographer. She promised to pay me back immediately. She never did. My parents praised her endlessly. "Vanessa's so organized. She's handling this wedding beautifully. So professional." Not once did they mention my name. At the reception, they'd seated me at table 14, shoved in the back corner near the kitchen doors, surrounded by distant cousins I'd met maybe twice. Vanessa sat at the head table with her new husband, Connor, my parents, and Connor's family. I was an afterthought, a placeholder, the embarrassment. Monday morning, I arrived at my office, a modest suite in a professional building I shared with an insurance agent and a CPA, to find a black Mercedes S-Class in the parking lot. Richard Harrington stepped out, carrying a leather portfolio. He wore a navy suit, his expression serious. "Mr. Chen," he said, walking toward me. "Do you have time to talk?" I let him inside. My office was small but professional. Clean desk, filing cabinets, framed credentials on the wall. Bachelor's in economics from State, MBA from Northeastern, 14 years of client testimonials. He looked around with what appeared to be genuine respect. "Do you remember a furniture business about 12 years ago?" he asked, sitting across from my desk. "Harrington Home Furnishings in Hartford?" The name hit me like a freight train. I remember. The owner was an older man, maybe late 40s, about to lose everything. That was me. He set the portfolio on my desk. 12 years ago, I was drowning in debt. My father had just died, left me a business that was hemorrhaging money. I was 2 weeks from bankruptcy. Then a young man walked into my store, looked at my books without charging me a dime, and told me exactly what I was doing wrong. My throat tightened. "You spent 6 weeks working completely free. When I tried to pay you, you said you couldn't take money from someone who reminded you of your grandfather." He paused. "You saved my business, Elliot. I sold that store 3 years later for enough profit to get my MBA, build my career. Everything I've accomplished started because a stranger decided to help me when he had no reason to. I'd forgotten about Harrington Home Furnishings. It had been one of my first clients when I was just starting out, still idealistic, still thinking hard work and helping people would earn me respect. When your sister introduced you at the wedding," Harrington continued, "when she called you the embarrassment of the family, I recognized your name immediately. Elliot Chen, the man who saved my life." He opened the portfolio. "I didn't fire Vanessa because of what she said Saturday night. I've been investigating her for 8 months. She's been falsifying expense reports, taking credit for work performed by junior associates, using company email for questionable personal transactions. The wedding just confirmed something I'd already suspected about her character." He spread documents across my desk, spreadsheets, email printouts, highlighted sections showing discrepancies in reported hours, falsified client meetings, expenses charged to the company for personal items. Sharon Vega, 22 years in corporate forensic accounting, discovered the pattern 6 months ago, Harrington said. Vanessa claimed to have negotiated a contract with Patterson Industries. The contract was actually negotiated by Daniel Kim, a junior analyst. Vanessa added her name to the final documentation and took the commission, $47,000. I stared at the papers. There's more. She's been charging personal expenses as business costs. Gym memberships, clothing, a vacation to Turks and Caicos she claimed was a client development trip. All told, roughly $83,000 in fraudulent charges over 18 months. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm offering you a consulting position. We're restructuring our subsidiary operations. 3 companies, combined revenue of $40 million. I need someone I trust, someone with integrity. He slid a contract across the desk. 6-month project, $200,000. I couldn't speak. "There's one more thing," Harrington said carefully. "During the investigation, Sharon noticed unusual patterns in Vanessa's personal finances. Large deposits from accounts shared with your parents. If I were you, I'd look into any family financial arrangements very carefully. I spent the next week digging through old documents, bank statements I'd saved from college, letters from my grandfather before he died, and finally, the truth. My grandfather's education fund had contained $95,000 when he died 16 years ago. The will specified it be split equally between his 2 grandchildren, $47,500 each. Vanessa had received her full amount. It paid for her entire college education, her apartment in Boston, her first car. My share had been invested by my parents in a business venture that didn't work out. They'd never told me. I'd spent 10 years paying off student loans I only had because they'd stolen my inheritance. The bank records were clear. My $47,000 had been withdrawn by my father, then transferred into Vanessa's account 3 months later. She'd graduated debt-free while I worked 3 jobs and ate ramen for dinner 6 nights a week. I sat in my office staring at the documents until my vision blurred. 2 weeks after the wedding, Vanessa called. Her voice was sweet, desperate, nothing like the cruelty at the reception. "Elliot, we need to talk. This thing with Mr. Harrington, it's a misunderstanding. You know how these corporate investigations blow things out of proportion." "Do I?" "Just tell them you helped me with some of those reports, that we collaborated. We're family, Elliot. Family protects each other. You called me the embarrassment of the family in front of 100 people. That was a joke. God, you're so sensitive. I was just trying to be funny. Look, if you don't help me, this could destroy my entire career. They're talking about criminal charges, Elliot. I could go to prison. You committed fraud, Vanessa, because I was under so much pressure. Do you have any idea how stressful my job is? I made mistakes. That's all." "Mistakes? But if you tell them we work together, I'm not going to lie for you. You owe me." Her voice turned sharp, the mask cracking. "I let you be part of my wedding. I introduced you to important people. You owe me." I hung up. 3 days later, Richard Harrington called me into a conference room at Caldwell Financial Group's regional office. He was joined by Sharon Vega, mid-50s, silver hair, sharp eyes behind designer glasses, and Marcus Reeves, the company's director of legal affairs, late 40s, with the tired expression of someone who'd seen too many cases like this. "We found something else," Sharon said, sliding a folder across the conference table. "During During the forensic audit, we discovered emails in Vanessa's sent folder that appeared to come from your email address. My stomach dropped. They're fake, Marcus said immediately. Created to look like you were advising her on how to manipulate expense reports and client documentation. She was setting you up as a co-conspirator. Sharon opened her laptop, showing me the emails. They had my name, an email address similar to mine, but with a slightly different domain. The content was damning. Detailed instructions on how to falsify reports, how to claim credit for others' work. The metadata tells the real story, Sharon continued. Every single one of these emails was created from Vanessa's work computer. The IP address traces back to her desk. The timestamps show they were all created in a 3-hour window last Tuesday night, after she knew we were investigating. She tried to frame you, Marcus said. If this had worked, you'd be facing criminal charges alongside her. I couldn't breathe. My own sister had tried to destroy me to save herself. The company hearing was held on a Friday afternoon. I wasn't required to attend, but Harrington invited me to observe from an adjoining room with one-way glass. Vanessa sat across from a panel of 4 executives. Harrington, the CFO, the chief legal officer, and the head of HR, a woman named Patricia Carmichael, with 28 years of corporate investigation experience. They presented the evidence methodically. The falsified expense reports, the stolen work, the fabricated emails, the metadata proving she'd created them herself. Vanessa tried to charm them, tried tears, tried anger. Nothing worked. Vanessa Chen, Patricia Carmichael said, her voice cold and professional. You are terminated effective immediately. The company will be pursuing full restitution for fraudulent expenses totaling $83,000. We will also be reporting this matter to law enforcement for potential criminal prosecution. You can't do this! Vanessa stood, her face red. My family has connections. Your father has no connections that matter here, Harrington said quietly. You're done, Vanessa. Security will escort you out. I watched her leave through a back elevator, a security guard on each side, carrying her personal items in a banker's box. That evening, I called my parents for the first time since the wedding. Elliot, Mom's voice was bright, oblivious. We were just talking about you. Did you hear about poor Vanessa? She's going through something difficult at work. I told her you might be able to help her find a new job. I know about grandfather's education fund. Silence. I know you took my $47,000 and gave it to Vanessa. I have the bank records. I have the transfer receipts. I know everything. More silence. Then my father's voice, defensive. That money was invested. It was stolen. You stole my inheritance and gave it to your favorite child. While I worked 3 jobs and ate ramen, she was living in a luxury apartment with my money. Vanessa needed opportunities, Mom said, her voice weak. She had so much potential, and I had nothing. I had no potential. I was just the embarrassment. We were going to pay you back, Dad said. Eventually, when things were better. 16 years. You had 16 years. Instead, you laughed when she humiliated me at her wedding, a wedding I planned, that I paid $3,000 for. I hung up before they could respond. 4 weeks after the wedding, the family held a dinner at my Aunt Margaret's house. I almost didn't go, but Aunt Margaret had called me personally. Please come, she'd said. It's important. Trust me. I walked in to find the entire family gathered. Aunts, uncles, cousins, my parents sitting stiffly at one end of the table. Vanessa wasn't there. Neither was Connor. Aunt Margaret stood at the head of the table, 72 years old, steel in her spine. I invited everyone here tonight because I have something to say, she announced. For 38 years, I have watched this family treat Elliot like he doesn't exist, like he doesn't matter. I'm done being silent. My father started to interrupt. She held up a hand. Sit down, Thomas. You'll listen for once. She turned to the room. Let me tell you about the nephew you've all ignored. 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. The treatment cost more than I had. I was going to sell my house. Elliot paid my medical bills anonymously. $11,000. I didn't find out it was him until 3 years later. My mother's face went pale. When Thomas and Patricia's son Daniel needed help applying for colleges, who spent hours helping him write essays, prep for tests, navigate financial aid, Daniel got a full scholarship. Never once did any of you acknowledge Elliot's help. She pulled out documents, printed emails, letters. When Thomas and Patricia lost their jobs during the 2009 recession, who co-signed their car loan so they could get to job interviews? Elliot. When their mortgage was about to default, who gave them $8,000 interest-free? Elliot. My parents looked at the table. This is the man you called the embarrassment of the family, Aunt Margaret said, her voice breaking. The man who's been quietly saving all of you for decades while you praised Vanessa, who it turns out is a criminal. The room was silent. Maybe, Aunt Margaret said softly, it's time you took a good look at who actually matters in this family. Vanessa showed up at my office 6 weeks after the termination. She looked exhausted, hair unwashed, clothes wrinkled, eyes red from crying. Can I come in? She asked. I let her sit, didn't offer coffee. I've been going to therapy, she said quietly. Twice a week. My therapist, Dr. Lisa Pemberton, she's been practicing for 20 years. She asked me to write down every time you helped me, every time you were there, and I took credit or ignored you, or she pulled out a notebook. Pages and pages of handwriting. I got to page 43 before I couldn't write anymore. 43 pages of times you showed up for me, and I treated you like you were nothing. Tears ran down her face. I always thought you were weak, because you never fought back, because you just took it. But you weren't weak. You were stronger than any of us. You were better than us. And I destroyed everything trying to be someone I thought mattered, when you were the only one who actually did. She stood. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I finally see you. Really see you. And I'm sorry, Elliot, for all of it. She left before I could respond. My parents invited me to dinner 8 weeks after the wedding. Just the three of us at their house. I almost said no, but something in my father's voice on the phone, something broken, made me agree. They'd taken down most of Vanessa's pictures. The house looked different, smaller. I've been thinking about your grandfather, Dad said, his hands shaking as he poured coffee. How proud he was when you graduated college. He told me you reminded him of himself. Hardworking, honest, strong. I ignored him. Dad continued. Told him Vanessa was the one with real ambition. I was so focused on her achievements that I forgot to see yours. Mom reached across the table. I didn't take her hand. I thought you were strong enough not to need us, she said, tears streaming down her face. You never complained. You never asked for help. I told myself that meant you were fine, that you didn't need a mother the way Vanessa did. But I was wrong, she sobbed. You did need me. You needed both of us. And we failed you. We completely failed you as parents. Dad's voice cracked. I stole your inheritance because I thought Vanessa would use it better, because I believed she was more important. I've spent 16 years telling myself it was the right choice. It was the worst thing I've ever done. They sat there, broken and crying, and I felt nothing, then something. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe the possibility of it someday. I need time, I said. Years, probably. And I need you to understand that I'm not the embarrassment anymore. I never was. You just didn't want to see me. We see you now, Dad whispered, finally, and you're extraordinary. 6 months after the wedding, Richard Harrington and I launched a program through Caldwell Financial Group, providing pro bono restructuring services to small businesses in crisis. We called it the Second Chance Initiative. The first business we saved was a family-owned bakery in Hartford that reminded me of Harrington Home Furnishings. The owner cried when I told her the consultation was free. Why would you help me? She asked. Because someone helped me once, I said. And I'm paying it forward. When the local paper wrote about the initiative, my parents sent me the article with a note. Proud of you. Finally, I put it in a drawer. Not because I needed their approval, but because I no longer depended on it. 3 months after that, Vanessa sent me a card. She'd taken a job as a junior accountant at a small firm, making a quarter of what she'd earned before. The card was simple. You were never the embarrassment. We were. Thank you for showing me what integrity looks like. V. I put that card on my desk, not because I'd forgiven her. Not yet. But because for the first time, she'd finally seen me. And maybe, eventually, that would be enough.